Good morning again. So, how many people have enjoyed the conference so far? Good. Please be sure to visit all of the vendors and to thank all of the organizers for what is really a wonderful, wonderful conference. So, welcome to day 2. Thank you for a picture of our new president. Let me try to perhaps change our minds for just an hour or so here. Social experiences will pick up on the conversation that we had yesterday to talk about the kinds of emotional experiences that digital technology can build for our marketing and our client relationships, but will do so focused in social media. I think that there are a lot of different strategies for social media. I'm going to describe one that I think is a bit alternative to the typical approach of using social media to market our properties or to buy advertising. You can always do those approaches. I would like to offer some ideas that are in addition to this approach, and I know that these ideas will challenge a lot of our comfort zone when it comes to using social media. So just let your mind wander a little bit and explore the possibilities of these strategies. For me, the most important thing about social media is to not make it only about advertising, because it's expensive and it's not necessarily the same space as marketing in a traditional sense. When people are visiting a website for news or sports or local information, they're used to advertising being supportive of the site so they don't have to pay. But when people come together socially, electronically, or in person, they're not necessarily looking for advertising to be part of that experience. So I want you to suspend the advertising strategy for a little while. And I want you to be focused on 2 very specific growth opportunities in social media. And that is the repeat client and the referral client. No matter where I go around the world, these remain the 2 largest sources and highest margin of profitability in real estate. And if we understand social media as a powerful tool for generating repeat business and for encouraging our current clients and our recent clients to refer us to their sphere of influence, we really see where the value is in networking. And of course, for me, the thing about social media that is so most exciting is that your creativity is your most valuable asset, not the amount of your budget. So here we have a quick graph that will give you an idea of some stats. I want to just back up for one moment and talk about how big social media is, and then we'll dive into the graph. Literally half of all internet users in the European Union have some form of active social media account. Active means they are logging in at least once a day. This is a dramatic change in social behavior in just less than 1 decade. So this means it's a really positive opportunity for relationship management. 300 million of those users are doing it exclusively on their mobile phone or mobile device. In France, there are 32 million users in social media. This is a little bit up year over year. However, the growth is not going to be very large going forward because most people have saturated their social media decision and they are firmly comfortable in 1 to 2 different networks. One of the most interesting statistics in this space is that a typical user will spend about 1 hour and 16 minutes using social media. Now, this is the average, so this has to account for some people who will do 10 minutes and some people like me who will do 5 hours. And this will really depend on how successful you are in creating engagement, in creating conversations, but 1 hour 16 is typical across the whole country, and this is very good for us because it is a very fertile market space to hold conversations. Where do they mostly go? So let's see if we can do this chart now. This is only in France. So just to break it down very specifically, this is no surprise, I'm sure, to anyone. The vast majority of users are in Facebook, and they're not just in Facebook, the platform, they are also in Facebook Messenger, which is for instant communications, phone calls, video calls, and so this is the majority of the playing space for us as real estate professionals. The other networks are not so large, probably between 6 and 10% in general, but you can see that some of them do get a fair amount of traffic. Twitter probably picks up the most, and this will depend on news more than anything else. And if you look further down, you will see some growth, strong growth in Instagram and Pinterest. In the last 2 years, those numbers have really started to grow. However, it's not likely that they will ever reach the size of Facebook. But as you probably know, Instagram is owned by Facebook, so we'll see some consolidation, which means that one channel may reach multiple platforms in the future, and this is very good for our conversations. Now, I think that in social media we have, once we let go of the advertising mentality, we have an opportunity to do what I call the art of storytelling. And the art is sort of like this photograph where there's always two things going on. We are trying to paint a picture in the foreground of something that is important to us, but in the background there is the public who is very interested in what's going on to them. And we have to bridge this gap, we have to close this gap between what story we're telling and what's of interest to them, because we can't get them to look up. That is a challenge that we cannot change, but we can certainly get onto their device in a way that captures their attention. Having said that, what is at the heart of good storytelling and at the heart of good social engagement is something that people can relate to, and they don't really relate to advertising. So I call this the art of the heart, and because the heart is the shape of everything we like on social media. And people like a story. They like to know what's going on in their neighborhood, what's going on with you personally. They like to just be connected to us as individuals and as leaders, but they're not going to like an advertisement. They're not going to like something that is simply a commercial offer. They want to be part of an ongoing conversation. And this is a strategy that I think is very unique. If you adopt a storytelling strategy, it's perfect for real estate, because what people buy in real estate is not the property. They're buying a set of future experiences. We advertise the property, which yesterday we talked a little bit about changing that. But the more we focus on the future experiences that people could have and desire, the more effectively we will create a connection with them. That is why when you look at good social media, it is often talking about lifestyle, it is talking about neighborhood, it is talking about what it is like to live in the property, and not just the number of square meters or the number of rooms or the technical features. In fact, sometimes it's not even talking about real estate at all. It's simply talking about experiences that people want to have for themselves or for their family, and this comes by virtue of living in this property. But what is a story in real estate? If you listen to if you listen to a lot of different advertising strategies, they will tell you that the story is driven by the news. I don't believe that's compelling at all. In fact, whenever we see news as a social media vehicle, we don't see a lot of connection. So we can publish a chart about prices. We can publish a list about sales. We can publish a graph about where the market is going, up or down. But wherever we see that type of content, we don't see a lot of people liking it or sharing it. There will be some, but it doesn't create that viral engagement that comes from just feeling connected to the person you're with. This is also true with inventory, with listings, because frankly, the public doesn't need to go to Facebook to find the latest listing. They don't need to go to Twitter to know that there's a new property. And when they go there and they see content that they already know or may not care about right now, they're disconnected. And so we really have to rethink what storytelling involves so that social media is very positive and delightful no matter where the client is in the journey. So I also want to give you some suggestions around what I call the selfie, because I think there is a balance between putting ourselves in social media and the selfie. And I think that this is important because we're not ordinary when we're in real estate. When we're in real estate, we can't take the same liberties in social media that an ordinary person, a buyer, a seller, or just a friend would do on their social media. Because every communication that we make represents both us personally and us professionally. And this is not true of other people in social media. So yes, we know that you're wonderful, but what matters to the consumer is how they're wonderful. So I want you to just be careful, because too much self-presentation in social media can be unbalanced and can cause people to disconnect from you more than to connect with you. So the art of the selfie is really quite a delicate balancing act, and if you are too focused on yourself, you can't be focused on what's important to the people you're trying to stay in relationships with. So just be careful with your selfies. In fact, I don't take very many selfies simply because it's much better if my clients will take a picture with me than for my clients to just get another picture of me. They really don't need any more pictures of me. And for goodness sakes, please don't tell me it's time to change the clock. Because when you think about the kind of content we put out there, not only is some content not interesting, it's just not even useful. So last week we changed the clocks in Italy, and I was just amazed that people were reminding people to change their clocks. To me, all of my clocks are digital. They change automatically. This is like being reminded to go harvest the farm as if it were 1850. So be careful that you're just not putting content out there for the sake of noise. You want always to make a positive experience. So what are positive experiences? The stories that work the best fall into 4 categories, and I'm going to talk about these categories, and you will be creative in these categories in a way that fits your comfort. For me, the most useful category is lifestyle moments. What does it feel like to live in the area that you're selling? I think this is compelling because, especially in France, where we don't often put even the address of the property, we're limited on how we can promote a potential purchase. But we can promote the neighborhood, we can promote the shops, we can promote the parks, we can promote what the morning or the evening feels like, what it's like to play there, what it's like to live there. And I think this is a very simple way to create engagement that is both personal and professional. So for example, I can post a picture of sitting in a cafe, maybe doing some writing or some reading, and I can create a lot of engagement with people without an advertisement. In fact, if you look carefully here, it may be a little small on the screen, this is just a picture of a bottle of water and a cup of coffee. And it can create 70, 80, 90 people to interact with it. Now, sometimes we say to ourselves, so what? Why do I want 90 people to interact with my cup of coffee? And I say to you that the goal is to just have them play with you every day. It's not about the cup of coffee, it's that they're thinking of you, that they have a smile on their face, or they say something positive as a result of this reaction. Because we're not advertising. We're not asking them to buy anything. We're asking them just to stay connected to us. This is relationship management, and sometimes you just need a cup of coffee. And people are very willing to participate with ordinary things that they can relate to. If you look at the comments here, you can see people who relate to this by saying, I was there once, or I like this area, or this makes me happy, and it doesn't matter to me. As long as they're thinking of me today, they're not thinking of the competitor, and as long as they're thinking of me today, I have a chance to make a positive impact on our relationship. This, of course, is one of my favorite recent photographs from François Gagnon, who is, of course, the head of ERA France. And I love this photograph because it shows us, who are real estate professionals, in an ordinary way. Just being ourselves, enjoying a day in Paris. For many of us, this kind of social media seems a little uncomfortable, it's not natural, but that is because we're still thinking about advertising. What we like to encourage you to do is just open yourself up to your relationships. Open yourself up in a natural way, and people will feel more comfortable with you. This is part of the process of building a relationship before you build a transaction. So this is another great example, and if you look at the bottom, I believe there are more than 239 interactions with this photo. I have never seen a real estate listing get 239 likes on Facebook. I have never seen a real estate ad get 239 comments on Facebook. But if I'm trying to influence others to someday work with me, I have seen many photos like this simple one, creating just another touch point, a delightful touch point on a regular basis. You also can go much deeper into the relationship by sharing more moments with you that have very little to do about real estate. Each one of us has some personal passion or some hobby. For example, for me, it's photography. Is there anyone else who likes to do photography in the room? Okay, so whatever your personal passion is, it can be a very powerful tool on social media. Wherever I go, I'm always carrying my camera, I'm looking for opportunities, and I'm using these opportunities just to continuously cultivate relationships. I took this photograph, for example, not too long ago, put it online, and can create lots of engagement. But what many people will say continuously, let me go forward here, is how do I turn those into moments that can become a future transaction? Well, by tapping into something that you do really well, and by creating trust on a regular basis, you're answering a very important question, not just for buyers, but for sellers, which is, why should I trust you not just for my transaction, but to refer you to my friends and to my family? And what I want to show you here is that by just using my passions, I am able, if I can go forward, I am able to show that I'm more than just a real estate professional, that I participate in raising money for charity, that I participate in contributing to my community, and that I can inspire people a little bit every day just by being myself. And people want to work with people who inspire them. They want technical competence, they want experience, they want past performance, but they also want to know that it will be okay, that it will be safe, and that it is a positive person to work with. And just to show you some examples of how inspirations become transactions, this is a very simple one from my life. So like you, I'm a salesperson. I have to both perform and sell on a regular basis. I have to get hired for the next event. But also like you, I need to use something more than just an advertisement for the title of my course. So for me, I use my photography, and maybe I add some quote or phrase or inspiration next to it. Let me make one suggestion. You should use your own inspiration, not just a quote from someone in the past, because people have already read those quotes. They already have experienced them, and you need to make them stop and read. So here's an example of a photo in which I try to inspire through my quote that every day is like a photograph. Now, what about the business? Well, this is what happened at the bottom of just that ordinary photograph and quote. One of the people who liked it, his name is Hank. And Hank, on the left side, said, "I love this perspective from Matthew." And he then said, and if you can see on the left, he said, "I can't wait to have you come back to my company and speak to my new team." Now, in essence, this is a new prospect. This is business from a repeat client, and I didn't have to ask him to hire me again. All I had to do was react. And on the right-hand side, I said, "Thank you. I would love to come back and meet your new team." And at the bottom, he said, "Let's do it. Can't wait to see you." And from one photograph, I booked another event without having to say, "I have a new topic, I'm fun to work with, please hire me, I'm affordable." All I had to do was be me. And this is the hidden secret of good social media. It is a formula of just you being you online. Not you being a proposition, not you being a slogan, not you being a logo, just you being you. And as we saw yesterday, a typical transaction will last between 3 and 6 months. So they are going to get to know you. So you might as well leverage you as the great asset in generating repeat business and referrals. I didn't have to explain to Hank what I did. I didn't have to tell him the topic of a new seminar. I simply had to give him a little taste of what it's like to bring me back and inspire him to make the purchase. And this is the simplest part of social media, because every day you have an unlimited amount of inspiration that you can deliver. So combine something that you like to do with a way of nurturing relationships and building business. And this can be done in any of the social networks. It doesn't just happen in Facebook. The flip side of this strategy is to turn the story around. One of the most powerful aspects of digital marketing is to let clients do the talking for you. Yesterday, we talked about this when we talked about reviews and testimonials. Social media is the perfect place for turning the story around and letting your clients talk about you. While I was speaking yesterday, many kind people in the audience were saying nice things on Twitter for me. I didn't have to say I did a good job and that people liked it. They said it for me. The same is true for you on social media. You can purposefully tell stories about your clients that will illustrate the benefits of working with you. For example, this is a real estate professional who uses the baby perspective in all of her testimonials. She tells the story of the child in the new house. And first of all, who doesn't like a picture of a baby? This is a very easy way to create a smile. But more importantly, she's able to create a theme, which is to say, look at the positive impact of my service on the children. This is the simplest way to cause people to pause and say, I like that, and I want that for me as well. You could also celebrate by simply showing the moment of the completed transaction, to celebrate that your new clients are smiling and happy to have the keys to their new home. This is an Instagram account from Appartenat, and what I love about their account is they're always celebrating not the success of the transaction, but the success of the client whose life they have improved. This is extremely powerful, and it doesn't need 1,000 likes. It doesn't need to be shared. It just needs a few people to like it enough to remember who they will want to work with in the future. In addition to celebrating these successful moments, you are also letting the people in the post share it to their sphere of influence. This is the best form of referral marketing. The baby's family and the happy clients will also share this post on their account, which influences the most important people you want to reach, which is the family and the friends of satisfied clients. This strategy is not difficult. It just requires you to break away from running advertisements and move deeper into building relationships that perpetuate your success. So very easy strategy. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be real. This is one of my more favorite posts because many times you can create a wish list, a contest of dreams for people who are thinking about real estate. And in this case, they can create a contest that says, show us your dream house. And so this couple, who obviously did not buy this property, took a selfie and said, this is our new house, which of course it was not. But most importantly, they were playing with their real estate professional. They were participating in a fictitious dream contest that allowed the real estate professional to benefit from other people playing in their account. So create a place where you can demonstrate both real and imaginary dreams coming true. We'll go forward from this in 1 second. Okay. In the picture-based social networks, this is much more important than in the text-based social networks. So Instagram and Snapchat, I think, are really hard to understand from a brand building and a personal growth perspective. But the key to both of these platforms is a sense of authenticity. Because, again, as we saw yesterday, the modern client is very skeptical about advertising. They're also skeptical about professionals using social media. With Instagram and with Snapchat, the ability to simply let an ordinary part of your day be the message increases authenticity. And authenticity is very high on the list of factors that build trust with clients. For example, in Instagram or Snapchat, you can create a very simple series of photographs which are collected into a story. They actually use the term story because it is a daily journal or a daily walk with me through my day. And what's so simple is that the photographs can be ordinary spaces. They don't have to be very professional. They don't have to be very edited. This is a friend of mine who does a lot of business in New York, and so she takes us through her day. She goes to the train in the morning. She stops by a building with a lot of reflections in it, and she just uses the term reflections. And at the end of the day, she shows us what it's like to walk home. Why would we do this, you would ask? We do this because throughout the day, your clients and your friends will be staring at their phone. We cannot change that. So the most we can do is get on that phone. And if it's as easy as sharing a little bit of your day, that others are not willing to do, you are able to appear in the space where they're spending more than an hour on average of their attention, and as you know, many more hours than that. I don't think you necessarily need to use both Snapchat and Instagram. I think you could choose one to build a strong presence in, but I want you to make sure that the presence is authentic and ordinary and is easy for people to enjoy every day, not just once a week or once a month. And that's important because the social networks that have not done very well have not done well because they are places that people only visit once a week or once a month. So when you think of networks like LinkedIn or Google+, you see that people don't visit them a lot because the information there is just plain, ordinary business information or news. So it's not compelling to visit every day. But if every day you take a different walk, you take a different photo, you create a different smile on people's faces, they're willing to watch these stories on a regular basis. In fact, some of the greatest brands in the world are purposefully creating stories, and in the past, they were curated by celebrities. So I think, if I remember correctly last year, I talked a little bit about this application by Louis Vuitton, which is called Amble. Originally, Amble was an application in which, wherever you were in the world, a celebrity curated a path through the town. So you could go on the same walk that Sofia Coppola walked on in wherever she is here, whatever city she's in. Now, this was the first strategy for creating what we call a day in the life experience. And of course, using a celebrity is a very powerful way to do this. However, what we've discovered is that while people like to follow celebrities, they also like something more ordinary and authentic, and this is, of course, us, and at the best strategy, them. And this is a twist that I think Snapchat has done really well. Snapchat is really quite good at getting people to be in their own story, and this is an opportunity to reverse the strategy. Not for them to follow you, but for you to follow them and simply say, hello, good job, I'm glad we're connected. Do not underestimate the power of simply saying hello every day, of telling someone you're thinking of them today and that you're smiling about them. Because it is a very simple way, better than an email, better than a template, better than a phone call, in many cases, to stay in contact. And what we've discovered is that new applications can make this happen at the same time that they can combine it with a brand experience. For example, how many people here use Snapchat? Let's just see a few hands. Okay, so a good number, maybe 20%. Okay. The real power of Snapchat comes in the ability to take a photo and add some creativity to it. Some drawing, some words, or to change your face into some strange shape or character. But what's more important today is a concept called geofencing, geographical fencing of an area. This is basically taking a map and paying to own a space on the map for 1 hour or 1 year or any amount of time that you want. So Snapchat actually sells the map. And they say if you would like to own a space, you can bid on it and you can purchase it for 1 hour, 1 day, whatever you like. For example, when I am at a famous spot and I start looking at the filters, I certainly will see the ability to write a message or to draw or to put a graphic. But I will also see, for example, an icon that relates to that famous place or that business or that property. So by thinking about how ordinary users like to be in their own show every day, and combining it with the ability for you to own different spaces around your neighborhood or your town or your city, you have the ability to cross-connect between your brand and their own story by using a filter. And so this is quite simple. It's a very interesting way to own this block around a property, for example. And if someone is at another space or walking by, the system can not only be useful in Snapchat, but it can also be useful to send them a text, or to send them a map, or to send them some other piece of information. And this adds another layer of contact with you that is in reverse. It is literally driven by their use of social media, not necessarily by you having to add more content every day. So you can pick any grid. This is, for example, would be a grid where you would find your own company, and you can purchase the space around the company. And as people are walking by, taking their own photos, participating by taking a snap of coffee in a coffee shop or a friend sitting at lunch, you also have the ability to connect them immediately because you're transforming the regular space into a digital space that can jump in and participate with their social networking. Of course, this is very psychological. The way this works is to play into the psychology of the user and the psychology of buying. Most buying in real estate, it takes maybe 6 months or 3 months, but it also has before it many months of dreaming. And social media is a great place to influence the dream. So, for example, in this case, Pinterest is a social network that's all about dreams. Pinterest should not be focused on the property you have today. Maybe you find a connection or maybe not. But the better Pinterest spaces are focused on things that people are just imagining they want someday. They want a typical space, or they're dreaming about a typical kind of ceiling or room color or furniture, or what else do we have here? Historic homes or barns for animals and horses. All you're trying to do is be the place where they're imagining their future. And the more they are imagining, the more they're also telling you how you can satisfy those dreams. Because every pin of a photograph is literally a data point for that customer. Again, yesterday we talked about using quizzes to get them to tell us about their preferences. Pinterest does this by simply using dreams. People come here and say, I like this kitchen, I like this view, I like this color, and they're telling us quite easily what you can do to satisfy their needs. It's also interesting to note that Pinterest is a co-browsing application. Almost all of the sharing and pinning is done to show someone else who is an influencer in the transaction. So a wife might find something beautiful that she likes and shares it with her husband. Or a mother will find something that she likes and shares it with her children. This is a co-browsing space which allows your images to influence the entire relationship set, not just the current buyer, but all the other people who participate in the dreaming space. If we can go forward here. Okay. Now, I want to just give you some exceptions to the rule because primarily we like to think about social media as a conversation space that we have between ourselves and our sphere of influence, between ourselves and buyers and sellers and maybe even other real estate professionals. One of the great exceptions is Twitter. And Twitter is an exception of a very special kind. And many people have decided not to do Twitter because it can be complicated. Also because you're not sure who you're talking to. And sometimes the conversations that result are very strange because they're so short and incomplete. But I want to give you a very simple rule about Twitter that as a real estate professional, I think you can leverage every day. To me, the best use about Twitter goes beyond just information. So in this example, you can give me some information about Paris, taking the top spot in Europe's most promising real estate. Okay, this will allow some people to read this article and to create some presence. And this is not bad, especially because it includes a photograph, which is compelling. You also can have some fun on Twitter. For example, when Paris was green for a day, you could capture a special moment. While these examples work well, you'll notice that they don't create an awful lot of traffic. And that is because they're just a few seconds on someone's screen, and they're not necessarily a reason to stop and engage. But the exception to the rule is when you purposefully set out to talk to someone who can benefit from your knowledge and experience. And in my experience, this means talking to the media, talking to the press. I think one of the most powerful uses of Twitter is to build relationships with press, with journalists, with television, with anywhere that is difficult for you to buy advertising. Instead, you form relationships. Here's an example. In the United States, one of the largest business networks is Bloomberg Television. Now, there is no chance that I'm going to be on Bloomberg Television. There's no chance that I can afford an advertisement on Bloomberg Radio or TV. But there is a chance that I can find one journalist and try to form a relationship with her. And so at the top, you will see Kathleen Hayes. She's a journalist who's about my age, and she is on Twitter discussing topics. And as she's discussing topics, I make a habit of trying to add to the conversation. Now, let me be clear about this. You want to add to the conversation. If your approach with journalists is to only point out how they're wrong, you will not go very far. And this, of course, is the temptation for us on Twitter, is to point out how someone is wrong. So keep that temptation in check. Instead, what I try to do is have an open conversation and develop this discussion in such a way that they will then repeat it or invite me to repeat it on the news or on the radio. So in this example, Kathleen was talking about a fall in home sales during a certain period of time. And my response was, well, these numbers seem a little odd because there was good weather in some places and bad weather in other places, so maybe this analysis is not complete. Not wrong, but not complete. At which point, down below, after someone else jumped in, down below, she said, she's in agreement with this. Now, how does this work? Every day, I try to keep an eye on what she's talking about and add a little bit to it, because over time, she becomes comfortable with my participation. This is how last year I was invited to speak on the BBC while teaching in Venice, but following this journalist. So this journalist had a story about Facebook. I had been talking to him for months. I made a comment, and he said, "Hi, I'm from the BBC," which I knew, and he said, "I'm wondering if you would be able to join us at 11:30 GMT." At which point, I had to finish my conference and run out into the hallway to join an interview on the BBC. Who am I? I'm nobody. I'm just someone forming relationships with the media to eventually have 2 minutes on the BBC, 1 minute on another platform, 3 minutes in a quote somewhere else. This is a great opportunity for real estate professionals who are not ordinarily being invited into the media. And finally, I want to just give you a little preview, I think, of something that is really going to become a daily important phenomenon, and that is live video on social media. Of course, here is a celebrity, The Rock, so he can certainly typify what we want. But I believe that the next frontier in social engagement will not just be a photograph or a blog or an article or even a conversation on Twitter. I believe it will be us using our smartphone to simply do a very short broadcast of not just information, but some inspiration, some discussion, something fun going on, something charitable that we're doing, because the live broadcast features today are built in to every phone with a camera, every phone with Wi-Fi, and every phone with Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. And I think we have to practice with this, get comfortable with broadcasting ourselves on a regular basis. It's a little strange to be on the screen. We feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe we're worried about our appearance. But the more we become comfortable with going live online, the more compelling and authentic we are, and very much create urgency for people to want to hear our message when it's happening in real time. We know that video is already the largest consumption point on the internet. We know that video is also the most popular shared item in social media. So the more you create video, the more you can not only talk to today's audience, but possibly talk to the future audience. Social media is really a very simple 4-step process, and it doesn't require a budget. Deliver experiences that inspire, inform, and involve your audience. Stop thinking about real estate only. Just think about relationships. You're dealing with people who are more than just a sale. Experiment with photos and text, geofencing, and live video. And finally, put your creativity in control, not your advertising, of your social strategy. If you would like a copy of these slides, feel free to contact me down below. And once again, thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you.